Question. Sir John, with several years of attempting to solve the conflicts in Mindanao, what could have went wrong? In a bigger picture, what do you think is the sole solution in all these Mindanao problems? Answer. Let me tell you this. Both the GPH and the MNLF are capable of dealing with the Mindanao problem through war. However, the two are like brothers, and their respective top leaders are absolutely determined that the only way of solving Mindanao problem is through peaceful process. Definitely, the sole and final solution will be independence of Mindanao. However, the challenge is finding a workable transition towards independence. In 1976, the MNLF and GPH agreed to experiment and start up on establishing an autonomous region as a transition towards independence. But it's been 35 years. We cannot see that anything is working on it. 3 years ago, in 2008, Senator Nene Pimentel suggested federalism. And this year, 2011, we have the MILF suggesting substate. I myself is studying another possible transition, which I call fixed period dual government, wherein the Mindanao government will be activated, okay, within the framework of peaceful coexistence with the Philippine government. During the fixed period of dual governance, say 10 years, we can gradually increase the capacity, powers, responsibilities, and territory of the Mindanao government. And on the other hand, we will gradually decrease that of the Philippine government. During this period of dual government transition, the GPH, MNLF, OIC interrelationships will be elevated into some sort of a mentorship to help improve the capacity of MNLF in governance. There are many suggestions about the possible transition mechanisms, but we have a commonly desirable sole process and path towards the final solution. And the commonly desirable solution and process is the peaceful process known as negotiation and dialogues. The final end is independence of Mindanao. The means must be peaceful. Leaders will have no time to prepare for war as long as they are busy attending activities related to the peace process. Now, what are these activities? Okay? I am referring to peace process activities such as, but not limited to, number 1, collection of sentiments from members. Number 2, internal organizational status update briefings. Number 3, internal deliberations and consensus conferences. Number 4, communication and advocacy gatherings. Number 5, public expositions and consultations. And 6, dialogues in the formal negotiating table. Peace is all about how the leaders of the rebel groups spend their time. Time spent on the peace process activities is time lost for war. The 3 factors that hinder the continuity of the peace process are: 1, provocation of war. Number 2, frustration of the non-performance or slow implementation of agreements. And 3, most common is when the key participant runs out of financial means to attend the peace process activities. These hindrances can be avoided through effective participatory control mechanisms. effective tracking of implementation, and provision of budget. Hence, I strongly recommend that there must be a regular budget to sustain the negotiators financially, to ensure that the participants will be full-time dedicated to attend to the various activities of the peace process. I would call this recommendation a negotiators fund. Okay, that's a nice name, negotiators fund. To put more detail in this negotiators fund, I am willing to sit down to discuss this with the GPH so we can come up with a guideline that will answer the various questions about my proposal, such as how should the recipient, who should be the recipients of this fund? Number 2, how many recipients are we talking about here? How are we going to pay the recipients? How much should we allocate rather? 5. What are the obligations of the recipients? 6. What are the ethical limitations of the fund? 7. What are the terminating factors of the fund? 8. How will this fund pass the auditing standard? 9. Where to source the fund? 10. Who will administer the fund? 11. How do we make the fund acceptable by the key players of the peace process? 12. How do we measure the effectiveness of the fund? 13. How do we settle disputes about the funds? 14. Who should answer public inquiry about the fund? Now, the list of recipients of this fund must be exclusively provided by the MNLF leader Nurmiswari, which I propose must include the following. 1. The legal consultants who sit at the front line of the formal negotiations. 2. Provincial and regional commanders who are directly responsible for the peaceful activities of the members in the grounds. Number 3. Peace advocacy officers who are directly responsible in communicating accurate information about the update and progress of the peace process to the broader audience. And 4. Time-seasoned MNLFs and experienced think tanks that are consulted by the MNLF leadership for decisions. In the side of MNLF, we are talking about less than 100 recipients. I estimate the fund required to implement this negotiators fund program would be around 50 million pesos per annum, which is roughly around 20% of the OPAP annual budget. The recipients will be obliged to sign a contract of services that will clearly define terms and conditions and activities that they need to attend. The reports will also included that they will have to submit periodically. Yes, the MNLF leaders who will receive this negotiators fund have to periodically submit reports, such as reports about the complaints and frustrations of their respective constituents, so that this will be read openly and recognized on the negotiating table. The tears of the people must reach the formal negotiation table. The vital condition of this contract is that the recipient will be terminated from the fund list in any event he or she gets directly involved in any act of war or breach of peace. The fund will be administered by OPAP. It must be clear that the fund will be implemented without delay, and it should not be used by the GPH to influence and buy out the loyalty of the MNLF. The fund will also not be used to make the MNLF alienate away from their struggle. The MNLF program is the best, the negotiators fund is the best program I can think of. It is even better than the integration program. In fact, If this negotiators fund will bear successful result in the MNLF, then it can be replicated in the peace process of the smaller groups.